Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimesh, Radia, and I'm your host. I always love starting every episode by saying thank you. I feel so blessed with this podcast. The people it reaches, the impact it has. When I started, it was really just a passion project and just some way really for me to use my voice. And had a life of its own. It's now grown to be in the global top 2% of all podcasts. This is going to be episode 338 or 39, something like that. We get messages on a weekly basis about people finding this podcast and the impact it's having, and just our way of giving back. I love being present. I love having this platform to share my voice. And if you're a regular listener, thank you for your support. We truly appreciate it. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. We'd love any feedback, any suggestions anyone has. Feedback's always a blessing. And just also message us and let us know the impact this episode is having for you. I am an Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer, podcast host, podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. What I get to do is I guide people on their journey. I really hold space, helping you to understand who you are, release the karma, and shine your light. And I feel like we're at a time for this planet that we're all going through some kind of shift, and we're all rediscovering the new version of who we are. And I love what I get to do. I get to guide you to understand what that really means through so many ways. We have we channeled a beautiful mentorship program, which you can work with me and Stacey or work with us individually. We hold your space over 12 weeks, weekly calls, really guiding you to you. I love the magic moments and the kind of the moments when you see in someone's eyes, the kind of the realization of the gift that you are, and kind of what you've been holding on to when you start releasing it. So I love doing that, but also so many other ways. I have a membership program I started recently. Me and Stacey have a monthly full moon webinar. Obviously, we have the podcast. We read Akashic records. So many ways of giving back. If you're local to me, I run a membership circle every couple of months. I just love what I get to do, and I love this podcast and the opportunity it gives. I am running my first solo retreat. I'm excited for that on March 20th, which is a spring equinox, which for me is a new beginnings, new year. 3.5 days in the beautiful Glastonbury, which has such a beautiful healing energy. Home of the Chalice Well, which is supposed to, it has the elixir of life, which is meant, it's such a, and it's on ley lines. It's such a healing energy for me. So I'm excited about doing that. And I love this podcast and the kind of the opportunity it gives us to reach so many people. So thank you. I just had a week where, on Tuesday, I ran a meditation circle here in my home. So much beautiful love. And then we had the full moon webinar just on the full moon just gone. It's on the Sunday just gone. We're recording this on the Tuesday after. I just love this. I love this space, and I love the phase that we're going through as a planet. And Stace, I love that you can join me today. So introducing the amazing, the stunning, the healer extraordinaire and published author, and my good friend, Stacey Brown. Stacey, I've got to do it. Please introduce yourself in only the way that you can.
Hi, friends. It's so good to be back for another episode, and we're so grateful to all of our listeners. If you're new here, welcome to this space. If you've been listening for a while, we're so glad that you're still with us. My name is Stacey. I'm an intuitive. I do readings for people from all around the world. I, too, am an Akashic record reader and a spiritual coach and mentor. And just about to the date, 3 years ago, I published my book, Journey to Soul Center, Discovering the Gift of Surrender, and it's available on Amazon and Audible. Like Nims said, there's so many ways to connect with us and so many ways that we try to give back and help. If you're not sure what you need and you're struggling right now in some kind of way, book a free discovery call. It is a great way to connect with us, and we can help guide you as to what we might recommend that you need to do in order to help yourself on your journey. Nims, I'm really looking forward to this episode today. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited too. It just it feels like a natural progression on the episode that we recorded last week on just the different energies and kind of how sometimes on the spiritual journey it's kind of hard to always be the strong one, right? Um, and this just feels like a natural progression to talk about, when it's time to lead differently. And this is what we're going to dive into this week is, I feel like, when we shift from divine masculine to divine feminine, what's needed from us is different from a leadership perspective. And when we think about leaders, a lot of the time we think of, kind of maybe big CEOs of companies or, maybe, whatever it means. And I just feel like we're entering into a time where ultimately we're all leaders. And, I mean, from my corporate training, everything else, I've, obviously done lots of so-called leadership training. And, I've many years of experience of managing people and mentoring people. And I feel like what leadership means is changing and evolving. And, divine masculine was all about ego. It was all about us putting people on pedestals and, kind of really having these expectations that maybe it was unrealistic. And I feel like we're shifting into a space of community in individualism and kind of every individual needing to be that leader, every individual being needed to shine their light. And I feel it's different. Like I said, it's not about so much about a few individuals being seen as leaders and kind of everyone following them. I feel like it's going to be much more about collaboration, about connecting, about really holding space. And this is what I talk a lot about. This is the time where it's time for you to shine your light. This is a time for you to own who you are. This is a time for you to be the bridge, to be that light worker, to allow, as the planet's going through a shift like it's never been before, to really be the example for other people to follow. And it is challenging our expectations. It is challenging our, kind of recognizing the old ways of leading, starting to feel heavy, starting to feel different. I feel like over the next 12 months, a lot of egos, we're going to hear a lot of stories about people that maybe we put on a pedestal. Rightly or wrongly, it's just, everybody's human, right? Everybody has these, and I feel like where we've always looked at for answers outside, where we've always looked for other people to be the example, I feel like we're going to be pushed more and more to look inside. And, the shift is really shifting from, how would I best summarize it? Shifting from, instead of carrying others, instead of pushing people forward, is standing beside them. This is why I'm saying collaboration is much more important than leading. Is leadership is sure holding space, but walking beside somebody rather than being ahead of them, and being humble with it. So, Stacey, I know that we debated this topic a little bit, and but I'd love to hear your perspective of, when I say things are changing, where from a leadership perspective, from a mental perspective, we're shifting from having to maybe nudge people along, carrying, if that, the analogy makes sense, to more like walking beside them. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that we're being called to lead in a different way. And for me, my whole world is shifting right now with what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And the approach feels different. I definitely would agree with you. I feel like we're being called to walk alongside people as opposed to pushing. It's a much gentler approach, in my opinion, and feels a lot more natural for me as someone who operates in a lot of feminine energy. This feels a lot smoother to me in how I'm approaching it. And it's interesting because I've gone from the last 5 years, almost 6 years, I've been working with people virtually from all around the world. And now I have entered back into a salon space where I'm hands-on with people. And I feel like that's calling me to lead in a different way as well. And I think the most beautiful thing about it is it's changing the way I'm showing up for myself. You know, it's getting me to be more nurturing and more compassionate with myself. And I think that's something that I'm really grateful to see that shift. I'm grateful to see things going in this direction. And for me, it's just felt like it's happening all around the time of the new year. There's a new energy, and it feels like a fresh start for a lot of people. And we're showing up differently now. Don't you think?
I do feel like, well, it's interesting. It's like for me, January still kind of felt really heavy. And it's only now that I'm starting to feel fresh energy, with it's kind of started with Neptune moving to Aries and last week, and just in the full moon, it's like it's like a small opening that I feel like it's going to grow over the coming period. And I always say spiritually, for me, the New Year's around spring equinox. So, but I do agree with you in terms of January kind of bringing a different vibration and pushing us to be different in its own kind of unique way. But it's interesting. I feel like the responsibility we have, and actually the responsibility I feel I personally have, is to show up differently. We talked about last week about, on the spiritual path, it's always an expectation that we hold it together and, be the one that's there for everybody else. And do we really allow the people to be there for us? And I feel like we've been pushed to be different. Letting go of the identity of the one that's always holding it together. Stacey, you have a superpower of being vulnerable. And it's just like, sometimes I'm in awe of you, of your ability to be that vulnerable, which draws people in. And I feel like I'm an open book, but it's just, I share whatever's in my heart. I don't hold back. My life feels like I'm in a little bit of a holding pattern, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate, where we feel a shift that's coming, but we don't know what it looks like. But I do feel like we're being pushed to let go of our old identity. The one that is there for everybody else and holding it all together. And I feel like we've been pushed to just be, and letting our example of who we are be the leader, be the lead, be the example. Less pressure on, showing up for everybody else and leaving ourselves last. It really is. We be the bridge, we be the leader, we be the light worker by setting an example and putting ourselves first. And I always talk about this, but I feel like we've been called to do that even more. And a true leader always leads by example. I remember an example in the corporate space. For those that regular listen, they would know that I've spent 30 years in the corporate space, right? And it was a good training ground for me. And I remember that, my corporate space, everything was going really well. I was leading a strong team in Europe. I had 70 plus people working for me. And I kind of was thinking, wouldn't it be cool for me to apply what I'm doing in the corporate space into my personal life? Because I wasn't saying my personal life was bad, but I felt like more in control in the corporate space. And I remember having a leadership meeting with my team, and just a small team of leaders. And I did this exercise where we were all around a table, but I turned my chair around so I was there present, but I asked them to have a conversation about what they needed from me. And it was really interesting. In the end, what they needed from me was to be more like what I'm like outside of work, in work. And instead of, asking them not to work weekends and evenings, but actually they'd see me doing it, they needed me to be the example and actually do what I'm asking them to do and make sure that I have really good balance. And that was a life changer for me. That was like, well, hold on, wait, what? And it was just interesting. And that's what I feel like we're being called from leaders now is to be the leader, is to set the example, is to be the one that's finding balance. It's just, leaders of maybe the old way of doing things would be the one that would work 60, 70, 80, 90 hours a week and just, but what's the quality of life? And, Stacey, even in what we do, it's just, I love to give, there's so much going on with just this past week, the meditation circle, the full moon webinar, and, new clients coming on board and planning for this event. And I love all of it. But at the same time, I've got to make sure that I find time for me. I've got to find time for meditation. I've got to find time to do what nurtures me. And that's what I feel like as a new leader has been asked to do. Is, again, in the old space, is being there for everybody else. But no, you've got to be there for you first. So you've got to put you first. Being a leader doesn't mean that you put everybody else ahead of you. No, being a leader means that you put you first. You set that example. And that's what I feel we're working on. That's why, I feel like I've been working on that for years. And I feel like I'm getting to a much better balance. But it's always work in progress. And I just feel like the time and the energy, and we'll talk about it the next few weeks, but I do feel new beginnings. I feel like I said, Neptune shifting, we have a shift with Saturn moving to Aries too. Both slow moving planets, but actually they're both, Neptune is all about spirituality and illusion and kind of, then you got Saturn, which is more rule based, and it's just, again, another slow moving planet. And we have, kind of, I don't know the full details of that, but it's just like we have things happening that haven't happened in centuries. Neptune being in Aries hasn't happened to the 18th century. So it's like, I feel like we're getting clues that how big this shift is and what we're being called to do differently. And, kind of, it's less about emotional labor and more about energetic integrity. And what I do mean by that is exactly that, is putting you first and being the example. And it's like, it's easy to say the words, right? It's easy for me to say, what, make sure you put you first and make sure that you find time to meditate and, but I feel like we've got to be the example. And I'll give you an example of me. I know that, I love spending time in meditation, spending time with my guides and I have been working on my physical body. It's a vessel for my soul, but I also know that's something I've got to spend more time and energy on. So I'm working to find the balance in all four of my bodies: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Because I can't afford to lose myself in this. I've got to show up in the way that I want other people to show up for me. And that's what I feel this topic's about. So let me ask you, how are you showing up for yourself? How are you showing up for others? How are you holding yourself accountable for yourself?
It's so interesting because as you were talking, it hit me that a way that I have really been dialed in and feeling good energy and feeling centered has been doing Reiki. I have been incorporating Reiki into the salon experience, and it has been so powerful for me to get me centered and grounded and to put me in the right frame of mind. And I have found that it has been such a powerful, calming practice. and is really in alignment with how I'm leading now, right? I'm doing a lot more self-care and leading by example than ever before. And I think it's interesting because I think people will hold you to a different standard based off of what you do with your life, right? And we are mentors and coaches, and I think people look at us and think, like, you have to have it all together. But I don't think that that's necessarily true, because we're still having a human experience. And that human experience requires us to step up every day in a certain way. And I have found that in this season, I'm showing up more for myself. And I believe it's having a ripple effect on the people around me that I am leading, because they're seeing me do things differently. And I think they're drawn to that and drawn to that experience. And I think that this is a powerful time for a lot of us to take a closer look at how we're living our lives, what we're doing, and how we're showing up. And I think there are a lot of us that don't even realize we're leaders, whether it be in our own home, with our family, that we might be a leader in our job and our responsibilities we have. There's so many different ways. In your friend group, you might be leading your friends and not even realizing it. And so I think it's powerful to take a closer look at how things are shifting, because I absolutely feel like my world has been turned upside down again. And it feels like a snow globe that you shake it and then you set it down and watch the snow fall. It feels like I'm in that, where I know things are different and I know I'm being expected to show up differently, but I'm not really sure what that looks like. So I just keep on trying to do the things that I know are helping me, in the hopes that I can inspire others on their journey to healing as well.
Stace, I love that. Hopefully you don't mind me sharing, but it's like before we started recording, Stace was like, I don't really know, what I'm going to talk about in this. And then we were talking about, what Stacey's just been through, right? Kind of making a conscious choice to what's best for her. She was going to move to the UK and, kind of didn't feel right. And, she was the leadership in her life. And, just that's a beautiful example for anyone that's listening to this thing. Well, I'm not really a leader. We're all leaders. We're all leaders in setting the example. We're leading ourselves, which is, you're a soul having a human experience, and you have a responsibility to lead yourself, to put you at the center of your world. We're moving into a period where you can't be a follower anymore. You have the ability to lead your life and to set the example. If you listen to this episode and you're thinking, well, they're not really talking about me because I'm not really a leader, I'm more of a follower. Actually, you're being asked to lead. You've been asked to lead your life. What's best for you? No one else is going to do that. Everyone else has so much their own stuff going on. We're closing cycles like so quickly, and we've been at. It's like sometimes it feels like a roller coaster, and sometimes it feels like we stood still. But I can tell you, energetically, there's so much happening behind the scenes. And I just, again, when Stacey was talking about it, I realized that over the past week with a lot of my mentorship clients, I'm guiding people to be able to open their own Akashic records much more than ever have before. Yeah, we have a training program that people sign up for in terms of learning how to read Akashic records, but just with my longer term mentorship clients, I feel like I'm building that ability and more, that kind of modality, because what I really want to do is set the example, but give people the tools to be able to build a partnership with their guides in a much deeper way. And you're just that's just an example of how I feel leadership's changed for me, is that I have a responsibility to guide people to their light, and then they have a responsibility to shine their light unconditionally. And how do I do that? Of course, by guiding people, but at the same time, by being the example, by showing up and just, showing up for me first, but showing up in all the ways too, with this podcast, with all the healing. And I love it. It's just, it's not, is it sometimes a lot? Yeah. And I was talking to Stace just a couple of days ago about, how when this planet is going through a shift so much, and sometimes we feel it all. I feel what the planet is going through, and sometimes it's a lot. But again, in the conversation I had with Stacey, would I do it differently? Sometimes I do feel it's a lot holding space for them. But if I was to have an honest conversation with myself, no, I wouldn't. I feel like that's a gift. But at the same time, where we've got to be careful is when the planet's going through a shift and when we feel it and all that sort of stuff, we have a responsibility to not let it drain us. And, to really, because sometimes we feel like martyrs, right? We talked a lot about it last week, and it's like, we love to be there for everybody else, but then we don't. If we're honest with ourselves, do we allow other people to be there for us? And this is what I mean about being more conscious, is we have to find that balance. We have to allow people to be there for us, just like we are for them. It's going to be different, sometimes I wish there was a me for me, right? But this doesn't work that way. It's a community. It's a balance. It's allowing other people to hold your space differently, but not giving your power away. So, Stacey, when I say to you, your vulnerability is your superpower, and actually that's the example that you set, and that's how I feel in many ways. You're setting an example. It's by it's not your vulnerability, it's not your story, but it's how you use your vulnerability to become the healer that you are and shine your light differently. How does that make you feel? Because I know whenever I talk about your vulnerability, it's like, oh, I wish I wasn't as vulnerable and all that sort of stuff. What I actually think is one of your superpowers. But I'm just curious how you relate it to you as a leader. And I love putting you on the spot, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's I don't think about it when I'm sharing, it's the aftermath when I'm like, oh my gosh, I just opened up about X, Y, and Z. And I am doing a room on Clubhouse, the social media app that we met on, Nimesh and I met on. I'm doing a weekly room in there right now, reading my book out loud. And sometimes when I have these moments, I'm blown away that I've shared this openly with the public, my most personal parts of myself. But there's something about showing up just as who you are without any filters that's very liberating. And I believe that when I do that, I'm setting an example for those around me, those that are on their journey and trying to figure out next steps. I'm paving the way for them to have the space to do the same, right? To be vulnerable with who they are and what their experiences are. And I definitely feel that it creates a space that feels like a safe haven for the people that I work with, because I've been so open about who I am and what my journey is that it gives them the space to do the same thing. So I find a lot of power in it. I really do. I just sometimes after the fact wish that I hadn't been so open, but there's something so powerful about knowing that you're helping just one person. And I've had so many people reach out to me, whether it's from reading my book or listening to the podcast, hearing me, hearing my story, hearing how I share, there have been so many people who have said, oh my gosh, that really resonated with me, or, that I've had a similar experience, or what have you. And it's amazing to see that bonding experience that happens, because it does something to bond people to you when they feel like you're being open about your journey and who you are. And it then gives them the space to do the same, which goes back to us leading in a way where we're walking alongside the people that we're helping versus dragging them behind us or pulling them or pushing them. We're shoulder to shoulder with them. And I think there's nothing more powerful than that, Nims.
I love that. Yeah, I 100% agree. It's just walking beside somebody, just allowing yourself to be vulnerable, allowing them to be vulnerable, and it's a co-creation. I always, the prayer, the footsteps in the sand. I think of that, as whatever you think of God, source, your guides, whatever, it makes sense. But I don't remember the exact words, but it's just it's the footsteps that you've taken in this life, right? And you look at, it's kind of the end of your life, and you're just looking along, and it's like usually you've got two sets of footsteps, and it's your guides, your higher self, God, source, whatever you want to call it, walking with you on the sand. And it's like you're looking at it, and then you look at your most difficult moments, and you don't see two sets of footprints, and you're like, wait, hold on, why is only one set of footprints? Why during my most difficult times, did my high self, God, source, whatever, my guides leave me? Surely that's when we needed more footsteps. So you ask your higher self, you ask God, source, and God, source, higher self, whatever you want to call it, says to you, actually, no, that isn't when I left you, that's when I carried you. And that for me is a metaphor of the collaboration, the co-creation, is allowing people to be there for you. And by the way, if you haven't read Stacey's book, I would highly recommend it. I'll include the link in the show notes, and I would encourage you to buy the Audible version of it. Stacey reads her own. It's her voice. She's a beautiful storyteller. I know because I was there when she recorded it, and recorded it multiple times. And she has this beautiful ability to kind of take you on that story with her, like you're there with her, and you feel everything she's going through. And I know it was difficult for her because she has to relive some of her most difficult moments in life, but she does such a beautiful job. So I would highly recommend, buying the book, but I would recommend the Audible version. And the other beautiful thing that, we did when we created a book was made sure at the end of every chapter, because this is the thing, right? It's like, it's not your story that interests us. It's actually what you do with it. So it's like, it's great. You could read Stacey's book and really kind of connect with what she's been through and everything else, but just doing that isn't enough anymore. So at the end of every chapter, she includes a question, a journal prompt to really allow you to go deep. So again, I know we're sidetracking, but it's a beautiful example of something that's going to expand you. So yeah, highly recommend it. But going back into the topic, so, and as we kind of get near the end, but just remember that we're all leaders. We all have a responsibility to shine a light. We all have the responsibility to allow other people to support us. We all have the responsibility to hold space while other people are going through to shift. And if you do have a management or leadership position in the corporate space or whatever, being conscious and you being the example, setting a boundary. And I know in the corporate space there's always been a culture of working super hard and working on longer hours, and it's like but I feel all that shifting too, and the change is hard. So if we've always led and been the same for a while, this is it really is a time to put you first, find time for self-care, but making sure you set boundaries. I talk a lot about this is the time of changing and making sure that you look at your world, you look at the people you have in your world and ask, are they holding my space? Are they allowing me to be and expand? And really challenge yourself on letting go of those souls where maybe the contracts come to an end. But if you're going to keep people in your life, make sure you have clear boundaries. And setting those boundaries, again, is a sign of a strong leader for you and for others. Being more present, more embodied, more present during conversations with others. There's a power of listening. We have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion. When you're conscious in a conversation and you're present, the other person feels it at a heart and a soul level. So be present in whatever you're doing. It's a beautiful time to simplify life. Choosing alignment over approval, because the only person you have to prove anything to is yourself. Why do we always look outside for the answers? Why do we always look outside for approval? This is a time where you need to look inside you for the answers. For sure, if you're working with a mentor like me and Stacey, or any, I never tell anybody what to do. That's not my job. I guide you to you. So that's what a good mentor, a good coach really does, is helps you to understand who you are, to guide you to you. It's just, you're not leading my life. What's the point of me telling you, yes, I might share a story that is relevant to whatever you're going through. But ultimately, it's about you understanding your journey and reducing the layers. And that's kind of what we do. But, and I remember in the corporate world, it started to drain me, the leadership style and kind of the human style, kind of being in another budget cycle and all that sort of stuff. But I knew my vibration, my energy in that space was also helping. So it's always your intention that counts. But it's like, if you are leading, if you're whatever you're doing, it shouldn't feel exhausting. Give yourself a permission to put you first. Include you in the process. You are important. You're vital to this. You're needed and you're wanted. So Stacey, I know I went off a little time. It's clearly a topic I'm passionate about, but just we've got to be our own leaders. We've got to be our own shining light. That's what we've been asked to do. So as we start to close out this episode, what in additional insight do you want to share, and any journal prompts you have in your heart? Over to you.
So I think it would be amazing to just take some time with your journal and ask yourself, are you a leader? And where are you a leader? Are you a leader in your home, at your job, with your friends, at your church? And what environment are you leading? And what kind of leader are you? Are you showing up leading by example and trying to walk alongside the people that you're helping? Are you trying to push them beyond what they're ready for? These are questions that can just get you to get a little bit of insight about your journey and see exactly where you're headed. And I have a feeling that if you take the time, you're going to recognize that you're leading people in a bigger way than you even realize when you take the time to take a closer look at your life. And so I'm excited to see what the feedback is on this episode and to see what people think about the new energy in this new year and how it's shifting things for you in your life. Thanks, Nims.
Thank you, Stacey. And just actually before we close, just to mention, the next few episodes, I do want us to focus on new beginnings, and we'll record the next one before the Chinese New Year. Actually, we release it before the Chinese New Year, so I don't know what's going to come up with there. We'll work on whatever. We always kind of work on near the time or to title the episode, but I am feeling different. I really start to hope that you guys are starting to feel the energy, the energetic shift. As a reminder, I don't feel like it's going to be a light switch. All of a sudden we'll feel different and we won't feel as heavy or as intense, but we do have to allow ourselves to feel different. And this whole episode is really about how we're all leaders. We're all needed. And giving our power away to others, it doesn't make sense anymore. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past, because we start judging ourselves. I always give my power away. You can't change the past. You can only focus on this moment. So please do listen to the upcoming episodes. There's so many different ways that me and Stace kind of support. Stace has a Facebook group. I have the membership. I have the retreat coming up. If you're in the UK, or if you can make it to the UK for the spring equinox, I promise you it'll be amazing. Come and join me. I would love for you to be there. We still have some spaces open. And I trust whoever's meant to be there will be there. But as we closing out, remember that you are a leader. You are needed, you're wanted. And if you don't have a lot of people in this world, just allow your light to be different. Knowing that you light when you're in spaces makes a difference. It doesn't matter whether you talk to anybody or not. Your light is powerful. Ultimately, leadership isn't about holding everyone else together. Maybe it used to be, but it's more about it's you standing rooted in your truth, setting the examples and letting other people meet you there. I'll repeat that. Leadership isn't about holding everyone else together anymore. It's about you being true to who you are, standing rooted in your truth, and letting others meet you there. Not shifting your energy, your vibration for other people. You're a powerful being. We love you very much. We love what we get to do here. So thank you for allowing us to do that. And please do reach out to us, DM us if there's any feedback you have. Set up a free discovery call if you want to talk more about what we do. This is what we chose to do. This was a life choice. I was 30 years in the corporate space, very senior role, earning decent money. I could have stayed there if I wanted to play safe. I didn't. And if you listen to this, actually, I feel like you've been called to do something different, whatever that may look like. If you want guidance in it, reach out to us. Sending everyone so much love and light. And Stacey, I'm going to hand over to you to close us out.
Thanks again, friends, for another amazing episode. We're so grateful to you, our listeners. We wouldn't be here without you. You make this space what it is, and we're truly grateful. Thanks again, Nims.
Thank you, Stacey. And do go and buy Stacey's book, and sending you all so much love and light. Thank you, Stacey. Bye for now.